Okay, so today we're going to talk about lesson plans. And this is really critical to moving forward for us as a district. And one of the things that the superintendent wants us to work on are these digital lessons. It's everything you normally do. And we talked about this the last training on Friday. So if I was going to create this digital lesson plan from scratch, which you don't have to do, by the way, this is made as a template for you. But if I was going to create it from scratch, one thing I would do would be to use the sample digital lesson plan that we already had. So I would go to my desktop that I already shared this one with you, and I would be thinking inside my mind, how am I going to use this? How would I use this as a template? So if I have the materials and the communications and the time and the outcomes, and I have ventures, and I'm creating what I'm going to use for class that week, I should be thinking in terms of weeks. So if you're someone who every single day you have a different lesson plan, or you're just progressing on the same topic from week to week. So if we're talking about co-ops and vocabulary, then maybe that part of our lesson plan won't really change from week to week. That digital force will be the same for lesson 3, right? But perhaps this might change from week to week and day to day, or over 1 week's time, we'll work on lessons 4 through 6. And then we'll be able to grab this link from our Ventures Arcade. So somewhere you have on your website, in your tab, you have this lesson. If I have this on my calendar, it's really easy to pull this up, and it tells the students where they can go to get that information. And then we can all take a look at that together, right? That's something that we can do together. If we're profiling different lesson plans, I would create a template number 1, unit 1, lesson 1, and I would bring this audio file here. So if I have an audio file that I'm looking at in the arcade, and I'm going to grab this link, I'll go up here.
Welcome.
Let me pause this, and I'll grab this by hitting Control C. It's on your keyboard, and I'll bring that into the lesson plan. And I can go right here and go Control V. So now, if I'm a sub, it's really easy to copy and paste the links that I'm using on the internet or on different websites like EL Civic's websites, CASA's websites, to insert them into my lesson plan. Okay, the EL CASAS level competencies, those are my competencies, and those are in the original lesson. I have them in red at the bottom, right? So in the beginning of September, I have to work on walking my students through where they can find these things. How am I going to do that? Well, the minutes are important. Those are my instructional minutes. Remember, minutes are an approximation, but everyone as a teacher knows that when students come into class, or they come into a Zoom class, we're automatically going to greet them, right? That's what we would be doing. We would either log digital attendance using a Meet attendance app, right? Where you would automatically have your Meet attendance pop up using this extension. And if you need training on that, I can help you on how to do that as well. Okay. Or you can just use paper and pencil and go back to ASAP or Infinite Campus later and insert your application. In the next 10 minutes, what would I do in my regular class? Well, I review the agenda. What are we working on today, right? What is going to be my homework, and where can I find that on the calendar? So if I'm a student, this is what I review with them in the beginning of every year. I work on listening, speaking, reading, writing, and workforce readiness for EL Civics. And then I would show them, where can I find my assignments? So if my work schedule changes for whatever reason, if something happens and I'm just not able to make it to class or I miss something, I should be able to find my homework very easily. And this is a copy. Let me blow up someone else's calendar so you can kind of see what I see. So if I go online, I can, if I'm a student, this is what I see. I see that I have a class here, and I see that everything I'm doing in this class is happening at this time. This is what I see. Okay, let's see, right here. Right here. I see the date and the time, right? It matches my lesson plan. I have a Google Meet that matches my communication, even if I am meeting with them by phone. I see vocabulary and spelling words, guidelines. Seems like she's getting all the way through it. Collaboration and cooperation, continued distancing, continued testing. She's talking about health. And then she even has her materials at the bottom. BE, new courses. Burlington, she put her courses here. And this is LEPE, right? LEPE's working on that. So mostly people are putting this, you're already doing it in the calendar, but there needs to be some separate specificity on a lesson plan. So if I were LEPE, I would take everything she put in that calendar, since she's working on that for the whole week, and I would spell it out here. And then I would go here to my share and I would grab the link and I could send it to my students on Canvas. So in this description, I would say, for example, if I was going to create a class here, in the description, I would add the link and say, week of 9/3 through 9/8. Okay, and these are our lesson plans. Control V. And now I have a lesson plan there. And then this class will link to a Canvas link. So if I'm a student, I'll be able to go there and say, what are we working on this week? And I'll be able to pull up this lesson plan. Or I could share the whole folder of lessons, right? And then what I would do, some things change on my lesson plans. Some things are always the same. Materials. I'm using the same materials. Maybe something will change come holiday time, or maybe I do something different if my class changes and I get a new class every 8 weeks. It really depends on your class. So communications, maybe we'll have a blended learning. Maybe it'll be sometimes in the classroom or Zoom or on Canvas, right? Maybe the time, maybe we'll be streaming. Maybe it'll be face-to-face. So you need to have some specificity. How do you meet? What's the little snapshot of your class? One thing that people do and they like to add here, and this is kind of a really important point for people who don't really know. So what if I need an extra row here? I'm going to insert table, format table, insert a row below. Thank you. I'll do that. And then what I like to do here is profile of my students. I think this is really important. So if you teach adult ed, right? A lot of us know that we have adults with learning difficulties. And there's a lot of things to consider as far as childcare issues, transportation issues, mental health issues that come up in adult ed. So the profile of my students, I can write a paragraph here that lets folks know. So once I get my roster, I can say, you know, this class is made up of 13 men, 6 women, Mostly are, you can talk about that. You can say the women are mostly stay at home and they are teaching, they are digitally teaching their children. And you can talk about that they are trilingual. So that's another skill that they're working with, and something when you're crafting your lesson plan, you need to be thinking about that in the back of your mind. You always have to think about that, right? How you can help them adapt to certain concepts that come up and what languages might need different translations for different things, and then how video might aid you in that. And then you can break it up per group and help them in that way. If you had Middle Easterners or you have Asian, and you can help pair them, peer pair them, where you can have a high level Korean speaking student paired with a lower level Korean speaking student, and they can kind of help explain. And once you get you can write that down here. So you can say, I have same language, high, low pairings. And then you'll set that up in the beginning of the school year. You'll just explain to your students, this is a technique. It's a teacher technique that I use to help, right? How do I do that? So if someone who is a high level pairing doesn't show up because they're working, so for example, you need to be aware of these kind of dynamics in the classroom. If you have a high level Korean speaking student no show because they're at work or their schedule changed at work, you need to have another plan for that. You need to have them join another group. You need to be aware of that. And you can say, some men arrive late due to work schedules. So there needs to be a plan B, because you're not meant to restart the class every time someone joins in, restart the class. Sometimes everybody joins in, restarts the class. So how can that help? Having a lesson plan. So if they arrive 20 minutes late, they can automatically see, okay, I'm 30 minutes late. Did they already do the calendar? They already did that. Oh, I don't understand the calendar. I really want to get with the teacher with the calendar. Okay, great. Well, the teacher has office hours on Thursday. That's great. I can email her because I'm off Thursday night. I can talk to her for 15 minutes and I can find out about this. Great. So that kind of workforce skill teaches them skills of time management, which is part of your job. That's part of your job. And it's one of those skills that is not implicit, because the implicit skill we're teaching is language, right? So it's one of those ambiguous skills that they're getting soft skill through osmosis and through your example. And so profiling these students is really important. And you can say how you adapt. You can even say some have AD, right? Adults with learning difficulties. Some issues that they might have. They might be hypertensive, they might have hearing issues, vision issues, they might have speaking issues, any kind of issues. So you can write some modifications that you have made for that reason. So just profiling your students, once you know your students, I would fill this in. Is it possible for you to go ahead and have all this done for the first week of school? I don't think so, because I think you need to fill that in probably the second or third week once you meet your students and you kind of have a sense of listening to them. You've seen a writing sample. I think the writing sample goes a long way to assisting you with where you start with the students. So when you're thinking about how do I approach digital lesson plan, you need to do all of the things that you would normally do in that first week of school to assess and then implement units 1 and 2. So the way Ventures works is you start on unit 1 and you progress through the 10 units or so. throughout the 10 weeks of that semester, or how we're going to craft the schedule this year. There will be some changes, so you're going to need to think about it. You're going to need to think about how that would work. So what I would do is I would have a template for the week, and I would have my minutes, and it's quite a long document, right? It's pretty intense. So as I change my lesson from week to week, what I do is I create a file, make a copy, I click OK, and now I know that this is a copy document, right? So I'm going to change the dates. I'm going to say this is from 9/18 through 9/22. And now this is my new lesson for this week, okay? And has any of this changed? Does the material change? No. Communications? No. Time? No. Outcome? No. Student profile? No. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down here. Am I still using these lessons? No, I might be on unit 3 now this week. I might be on lesson 1. Okay, so I'm going to need to change. This is still the same link where I can go and get the audio. And then am I still going to use these same techniques? Maybe. I might use that, so I'll keep that. And then the article is going to be different, and I might specify the title of what we're working on now, and it might have something to do depending on our unit. And so it might have something to do with a resource for weather. So if I go there, I'll click on that resource. It'll be a hyperlink to weather, and then I'll know how to do that, okay? And then I would just work down my template and change this as needed. And now I'm prepared for the third week. So if I go to just in the last 10, 15 minutes showing you this, just what I've done right here, I have the original lesson template. I have the next week, and then I have the next week. So I have 3 weeks here. So the only thing you need going forward is really like 6 full weeks of lesson plans. So if you're someone who's saying to themselves, I can't do all these lesson plans, it's totally impossible, then what you should do is chunk that, and you should meet with a trainer one-on-one with me, and you're going to walk me through what does a year look like for you. And if you have no idea how to find standards for your subject for adult ed, it's easy for me to copy and paste that information to you, and we can add that to your competencies. We can add this link here. It's actually on the share drive. So if you go to the share drive and we're in ESL, hopefully this will take us to, it might not let me go there because I'm filming. So if I go to links for adult ed, it'll have the course competencies for adult education, and they have a learning portal and community and state resources, which has to do with the standards. And we should be aware of this, right? Everybody should know how to do this by now. Implementing strategies, links, resource for adult ed, and then anything you would like to look at for your standards. So if you look down in here and you're looking for the different information for competencies or math instruction, I would click on that, and it's going to take me to that website. And there's some instructional readers, and perhaps I'm going to work on this with related topics. And so I'll click on that, which is going to take me to a novel to read. And there's an instructional video, okay? And I can get the link. So usually there's a little link that takes us directly to what we're looking for, okay? And these are instructor guide things on cutting hair with an audiobook, food from home. So what do I want to do? I want to go ahead and grab this as a reader, Control C, go back to my lesson plan. And in my reader, I say, okay, well, somewhere closer to the end of the month, for my reader, I'm going to go Control V, and that's going to take me to the EL Civics reader the ESL literacy that I'm using, and that's out of Bow Valley College. So it gives them the source, and they can go there and take a look at that as well, if they have time. Usually they don't after work, right? So it's really up to you to kind of walk them through this kind of thing and show them how to learn and how to access information. That's part of your job, right? So if I have a lesson plan for 11 through 16, and I have a lesson plan for 9 through 8, right? And I have another lesson plan for 18 to 22. Now I'm all planned up. I have a plan for September, and that's just 3 weeks. So just in the last few minutes, in the last 10 minutes, I can create 3 lesson plans that has me covered for September. Just so that you know. So now I would go back to August and I would think about, okay, I'm going to show them how to access Canvas. I'm going to make sure they take the orientation online. I'm going to make sure they give me a writing sample and they're taking the pre-test. So I have a benchmark to start from and I get a score for them, right? So that's something that you have to really take a look at. We already have this in our teacher brain. And what I'm here to help you do is translate that into a digital lesson plan. And you don't have to, you're not going to find anything online. There's nothing online that kind of walks you through this. There's nothing online. It's really coming from teacher brain, where you're bringing out the things that you normally do and showing you the basic makeup and the profile of the class. Once you get into the profile of the class, then you get into the standards, and then you get into the actual agenda, is really what are you doing? And an agenda is really the minutes, right? So a lesson plan should be the actual profile of the class, right? And that is obviously the level and the name of your course, okay? And all this information gives me that. Tells me as a sub, what am I doing? Where am I going? What's happening? These are standards, and it breaks down a little bit more into some more specifics on what I'm teaching and how I'm going to piece that apart, right? Listening, speaking, reading, and writing, right? So if you're giving them the writing piece and we're really not focusing on that in our Zoom lesson or in our face-to-face lesson, you can say this is going to be done online for homework. That's possible. It's possible, that we can assign that. If folks who are working, they can't get to it, well, guess what? They can't get to it. They're an adult student. They're not K through 12. So if it's important to them, they'll make time for it. If not, they'll come to office hours and you can help them work through that individually. And that's always an option. That's what we're here for. And that's showing you teacher worth. That's what you're there for, right? So the workforce readiness, obviously, you put a little link here, right? And after you have the standards, here's really where you're showing the agenda for your class, right? And that's your minutes, right? What exactly you're doing and how you're implementing this teacher technique. Do I have to have all these things here? No, you don't. You don't. I put almost, too much in there. You can simplify that a lot, and that's what I'm here to help you with. I'm here to help organize your brain. There's a lot of things going on. Most important thing you can do, headed into the fall, is create a digital lesson plan. Create a structure, and then create the calendar. Those two things are going to help you go very far into understanding what you need to do for Canvas. That's really going to be the meat and potatoes of getting into the next school year. All right, so I hope that helps you, and I'll be sending other videos down the pike. Okay, thanks.